My name is Nathan, I'm 36, and at my own brother's engagement party, he pointed to a chair by the trash and told me, "Sorry, this table's for family only." Before I tell you how that night ended with a stunning $3,500 bill and a family meltdown that's still sending shockwaves, do me a favor and let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. It's always amazing to see how far these stories travel. It was a rooftop restaurant downtown, the kind of place with fairy lights and a view that costs more than most people's rent. My brother, Ryan, stood there with this smug look he'd perfected over a lifetime of getting whatever he wanted. He gestured with his champagne flute. "We saved you a special spot, Nate. Right over there. It's a little more private, but you don't mind, right?" He was pointing to a single, sad-looking metal fold-out chair wedged between a potted plant and a clattering busboy station. The main table, a long, beautiful oak thing, erupted in polite, tittering laughter. My parents, seated at the head of the table, suddenly found their wine glasses incredibly fascinating. They wouldn't meet my eyes. For a second, the air left my lungs. It was a physical blow. But I didn't argue. I didn't make a scene. I just gave a tight nod, walked over to my designated seat, and sat down. As I did, my eyes briefly met the restaurant manager's from across the room. He gave me a small, questioning look. He knew I was the one who'd booked the private room. He knew whose credit card was on file for the deposit. And in that moment, something cold and clear began to form in the pit of my stomach. They had no idea what was coming. To understand why I didn't just storm out right then, you have to understand my family. There have always been two sons, Ryan, the golden child, and me, the responsible one. Ryan was the charismatic screw-up, the one who dropped out of university to find himself, who burned through jobs like they were disposable napkins, and who, at 30, was still living at home. I was the quiet one, the old reliable Nathan. I worked 2 jobs to put myself through state college while my parents were writing checks for Ryan's latest can't-miss startup idea that, somehow, always missed. For years, I told myself this was just how families worked. I'd show up to every birthday, every holiday, gift in hand, hoping that this time, I'd finally earn my seat at the table. It never happened. The jabs were constant, disguised as jokes. "Oh, Nathan's here. Don't worry, we'll try not to have too much fun." Just 2 weeks ago, I was having lunch with my best friend, David. I was venting about my mom asking me for a small loan to cover Ryan's car insurance. David put his fork down and looked me dead in the eye. "Nate, you have to see what's happening," he said. "They don't just take you for granted. They're using you. You're not their son, you're their emergency fund. Their safety net." The words hit me hard because I knew they were true. "You're their plan B," he said. "Not their family." That phrase, emergency fund, just echoed in my head. So, when my mom called me about the engagement party, I should have known better. Her voice was like honey. "Nathan, sweetie, you're so good with these things. Could you find a nice place for Ryan and Lauren's party? Something special." I knew what special meant. It meant expensive. And I knew what her next sentence would be before she even said it. "If you could just put down the deposit to hold the room, we'll pay you back on the night, of course." Of course. The old me, the hopeful me, agreed. A part of me still thought that if I made this night perfect, if I handled everything flawlessly, they'd finally see me. I found the stunning rooftop venue. I paid the $600 non-refundable deposit with my own card. I even bought a beautiful, expensive crystal vase for their engagement gift. I showed up on time, in a tailored suit, ready to be the good son, the good brother. Ready to finally be part of the family. I walked toward that long oak table, my heart full of this fragile, stupid hope. And that's when Ryan pointed to the chair by the trash can. So I sat there. At my little metal chair, listening to the clink of silverware and the bursts of laughter from the family table just 20 feet away. For the first hour, I felt the familiar sting of it. The humiliation. I watched my father grandly order another round of expensive scotch for the table. I watched my mother glow as she told a story about what a charming, adventurous child Ryan had always been. It was like I was invisible. But then, something shifted. David's words came back to me. Emergency fund. Safety net. I wasn't sad anymore. I was observant. I pulled up my phone, opened the Notes app, and typed those 2 words, emergency fund. I stared at them. I wasn't a son sitting alone at a party. I was an investor observing an asset. A very, very risky asset. I looked up. The manager gave me another polite nod from across the room, a silent check-in. I nodded back. I wasn't just waiting for the party to be over. I was waiting for the bill. A strange calm settled over me. The background noise of their celebration faded away. I was no longer a part of it, and for the first time in my life, I was okay with that. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of desserts and coffee and one more round of drinks, the party began to wind down. The laughter died to a contented murmur. The manager, holding a black leather bill folder, started walking from the register. He walked past my father, who was busy trying to light a cigar. He walked past Ryan, who was showing off Lauren's ring. He walked straight to my little table by the busboy station and placed the folder in front of me. "Sir," he said quietly. "Your bill." The silence was instant. Every single eye at the main table swiveled to me. I could feel their collective gaze. Ryan had a smirk on his face, that familiar, arrogant smirk that said, "Go on, Nate. Clean up the mess like you always do." I opened the folder. The total was $3,542.18. I took a deep breath. Then I picked up the folder, stood up, and walked over to the main table. I placed it gently on the table, right in front of my father. "I think this belongs to you, Dad," I said, my voice even. My father blinked, confused. "What's this?" Ryan scoffed. "Hey, your card's on file, man. Just pay it." I turned my head slowly to look at my brother. I let the silence hang for a beat. Then I said, "It is. For a family dinner. And as you so clearly pointed out, Ryan." I paused, looking him right in the eye. "I'm not at that table." You could have heard a pin drop. The color drained from Ryan's face. My mother's jaw literally dropped, her hand flying to her chest. My father just stared, speechless. The smirk was gone. In its place was pure, unadulterated panic. I turned to the manager, who was watching with wide eyes. "My apologies for the confusion," I said calmly. "Please direct all payment inquiries to the host of the party." Then I turned and walked away. "Nathan," my mother's voice cracked. "Nathan, what are you doing?" I paused at the door, but I didn't turn around. "I'm going to find my table now," I said to the empty air. And I walked out. As I stepped into the cool night air, my phone began to buzz violently in my pocket. A text from Ryan. Then a call from my mom. Then another text. I didn't even look. I pulled my phone out, opened my contacts, and found my dad's name. Block. My mom's name. Block. Ryan's name. Block. With each tap of the screen, a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying lifted off my shoulders. The buzzing stopped. For the first time in as long as I could remember, there was silence. The next few days were a storm of digital rage I was completely shielded from. I found out what happened not from a tearful phone call, but from an absolutely furious email from Ryan that somehow got through my spam filter a week later. It wasn't an apology. It was an accusation. He told me I had embarrassed him and our entire family. Lauren's father, a quiet, serious man who valued character above all else, had been appalled. He hadn't just been angry that they'd tried to stick me with the bill, he was horrified by the table by the trash story, which Lauren had tearfully confessed to him. Ryan's email said that her father had requested a serious meeting to discuss the fundamental values of this union. It was a threat, clear as day, to the entire engagement. And of course, it was all my fault. A few days after that, there was a knock on my door. It was my mother. She looked tired, her eyes red. I thought for a second this was it. The apology. I was wrong. Nathan, you have to fix this, she said, her voice trembling with manipulative tears. Ryan is a mess. Lauren is crying all the time. You're ruining your brother's life. You need to call her father and explain. Tell him it was a misunderstanding, a joke. The old me would have caved. The old me would have felt the guilt and shouldered the blame. But as I stood there, looking at her, I felt nothing but a sad, calm finality. This was the real test. No, Mom, I said, my voice quiet but firm. I'm not fixing this. This is Ryan's mess. He made it when he pointed to that chair. She stared at me, shocked, as if I'd spoken in a foreign language. But, we're family. Are we? I asked. Family doesn't treat one of their own like an ATM, family doesn't put one of their own by the trash. I saw the flicker of understanding in her eyes, quickly replaced by indignation. But it didn't matter anymore. I wish him the best, Mom, I said. I really do. And then I did something I never thought I'd have the strength to do. I gently closed the door. It's been a few months now. I heard through the grapevine that Ryan and Lauren are in counseling. Her dad insisted on it. I don't know if they'll make it, and honestly, I've stopped caring. It's not my problem to solve. The other day, a notification popped up on my phone. Mom's birthday. In the past, that would have kicked off a week of anxiety, of trying to find the perfect, thoughtful gift that would go mostly unappreciated. I looked at the notification for a long moment. Then, I smiled, and I swiped to delete it. I made myself a cup of tea and sat by my window, looking out at the city. I didn't have to fly to Italy to feel free. I found freedom right here, in my own quiet apartment. In the silence of my phone. In the simple, powerful act of finally choosing my own table. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to share, but I feel like someone out there needed to hear it. My question for you is this: have you ever had to make a difficult choice to protect your own peace and self-respect, especially with family? What happened? Let me know your story in the comments below, I'll be reading them. And if this resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you'd like this video and subscribe for more stories. It really does help. Thanks again.